Hello, welcome to today's devotional. We're looking at Proverbs chapter 8, verse 19 today. And this verse, of course, comes in the chapter 8, the process of wisdom talking to us. Now, wisdom is being personified here as a woman talking and calling to us to be in this relationship with her. And so each of these verses that we've been dealing with in the last little while are her speaking to us about the benefits of being in this relationship with her, wisdom. And so here we are in verse 19, and she says this. She says, "My fruit is better than gold, even pure gold, and my yield better than the choicest silver." Now, making a comparison here, obviously, between what comes from this relationship with her, my fruit, my yield, right? The idea of what comes from the relationship with her. You could almost think of it this way: if you invest in this relationship, then the outcome, the returns from this relationship are better than, let's say, if you invested in gaining gold and silver, then the returns of that investment of gold and silver is not as good as the returns in the investment in wisdom, which brings, well, what wisdom brings. And so that's kind of the message of the poetry that we see in verse 19. And it follows right after verse 18. Yesterday, whatever it was, we had our last devotional, and we talked about this idea of the value of realizing what is really worth, what's more important, the prioritizing of things, and knowing this is more valuable than that, and so on. And so here in verse 19, carrying that thought of is like, well, when you're making this comparison, realize the wisdom God has produces more benefit in your life than having gold and silver. And so it's an important thing. Now you might wonder, why is it that the Proverbs, in these first 9 chapters of Proverbs, there's a lot of this talk around the same ideas, and it seems to circle around. It has a bunch of stuff it talks about, but it circles back around to these very common ideas throughout these first 9 chapters. And the reason is because it's foundational in understanding all the chapters that follow. Chapters 10 and beyond are proverbial. They have singular little sentences that don't have a large context, and so they're each to be kind of figured out on their own. And how do I understand this one proverb that doesn't fit into a context in the same way? And well, the context is the first 9 chapters of Proverbs, as it builds a foundation of thought. And so it comes and it really tries to drive the point home over and over again in various poetic ways. The theme of choosing the right path and understanding that one path leads to destruction, one leads to life, choosing to fear the Lord, or listening to instruction, or avoiding the adulterous situation, or avoiding wealth and instead pursuing righteousness and over wealth, and so on. And all these themes become foundational to understanding the rest of the book and all the other proverbs that are there. They become the context of the whole rest of the book. And so here we are again. We're just re-emphasizing this point. Um, and it's worth saying, why is it, I wonder, that this isn't just obvious? Like, why does it need to be reemphasized? Why is it that humans make this mistake so often, the mistake of pursuing wealth rather than wisdom? It's evident. Humans do it all the time. I mean, whether you think of the person who gambles away their income, their savings, because they've got some sort of gambling addiction and the desire to amass some sort of fortune, or even just people who are really kind of almost in poverty, and yet they'll find a way to buy lottery tickets, or whatever the case may be, or people that just simply don't budget and spend their money safely. They spend it in frivolous ways without thinking about it, and in a sort of a negative sense. They pursue the wealth of things rather than wisdom. And it's a weird thing, but humans, we do this all the time. Is it just greed? Are we just so greedy that we want more and more and more and more? Yeah, somewhat, maybe that's probably part of the answer, but I think it's part of the reason, or maybe the biggest reason, why we pursue wealth, usually at great cost to ourselves, is because I think we falsely believe that it will be a provider of everything we want. That it's like, if we can just get wealth, then all of my desires will be met. And we think that it can provide that for us, right? We think, if I have enough money, I will be sustained. I will have all of the food I need. I'll have a house and all the clothes I need, and I don't have to worry about anything in life because I'll have wealth that will take care of all the sustaining things of life, right? Of course, Jesus told us that's a false way to look at things. It's wealth is actually not reliable at all. It's very fickle. and that we shouldn't pursue wealth first. We should instead pursue the righteousness of God and His kingdom, and then all these other things will be taken care of as a result of that. And so, the Bible very clearly gives us a contrary view of that. But I think in our minds, we believe that somehow at a subconscious level, that if I can just be wealthy, then I won't ever worry again. And that's just not true. Or we think if I just have enough wealth, I can take care of all the fun, I can have all the pleasure in the world, I'll be happy, right? I'll just be happy if I can just achieve a certain amount of wealth, and I get to have all the toys I want, all the experiences I want, and so on. And we think that becomes a route to happiness, and that's, once again, it's just false. I mean, there's been many psychological studies done of wealthy people who find that they just can't catch the leprechaun at the end of the rainbow. It doesn't matter how much wealth you gain, you never really catch the magic number. And it's really true. And then it's just so unreliable. Like you think you're going to have happiness through this. You think it's a reliable thing. If I can have this much money, I'll be happy. And yet, so often we find that once we achieve the goal we think will make us happy, the goal pushes off, and it's actually farther away than we thought in the first place. And we just never reach the goal of happiness. And so it's a falsehood, but we believe it somehow, or we think that if I have enough money, then I can use that money to protect me from things, from dangers, and from hostilities, and I'll be able to use that wealth as a means of power, and I'll be able to achieve goals that I have for myself, and that will strengthen me and protect me from the dangers and my enemies and all these kinds of things. But I mean, I think we all know how often it is that corporate giants fight each other, and how often they have to struggle to protect their wealth, because there's always somebody who wants to take it from them. And nobody well, I shouldn't say nobody, but very few people break into a poor man's house to steal. They break instead into the rich man's house to steal. And so it actually kind of has the opposite effect, increasing the dangers in some ways. And so it's just a false thing, but we think it. Right? Or we think that it will enable me in some way. If I have enough wealth, I can finally do and accomplish the things I'd like to do and accomplish. That all I need is money. And I mean, we know governments all over the world that think that's the answer to every problem. Just got to put more money in it. If we just give more money, the problem will go away. It'll be dealt with. It'll enable us to conquer the problem. And well, somewhere's inside of ourselves, I think we all know that's just a fool's errand. It's a foolish way to approach things, that money doesn't make problems go away. It doesn't enable us like we think it will. And that's the thing, the deceptiveness of wealth. It's really deceptive. And yet so often in humans, we think it's an answer to every question. And so we pursue it. And what wisdom is saying here is like, no, like if you invest in getting wealth, thinking that's going to solve everything for you, it won't. Like my yield, the fruit of relationship with me, with wisdom, it is better than wealth. You will have a much better outcome. You'll have a source in your wisdom. You'll have a consistency in your wisdom. You will have something that's applicable in every situation, whereas money isn't. It's just so much better to have wisdom. And you can think about it in very, very practical terms. What would you rather have? Would you rather be in your house and have no fire extinguisher, but the knowledge of how to fight a fire? Or would you rather be in your house with a dozen fire extinguishers, but have no knowledge about how to fight a fire? When the fire breaks out, which situation would you rather? I mean, in our intelligent brain, we're going to go, well, what good is a fire extinguisher if I don't know how to use it? Right, exactly. And then that's the idea. Would you rather have a life preserver? Or would you rather know how to swim? The life preserver has its place. It does, but really knowing how to swim is even better. And now, we can argue that through, but there's a principle there. And the principle is not to say that wealth is evil. That's not the goal of Proverbs. It's not saying that wealth is evil, but wealth can be a source of evil. And wealth can be a source of false security. And it can be a source of false gain. It can be such a source of bad things, whereas wisdom is a source of good things. And if you have wisdom and wealth, well, now there's something that's really valuable. That's kind of the lesson. Anyway, today is just to realize that of the two, if you had to have one, wisdom or wealth, pick wisdom. And hopefully you'll get a little of both. That'd be nice. But definitely pick wisdom. It's more valuable than every physical wealth you could possibly get. Anyway, God bless you. Lord willing, we'll be back tomorrow with verse 20. In the meantime, have a great day.